All right, welcome. Welcome today to the miracle work. Great that you're here. Really lovely to enter in to stillness, to receptivity, to remembering, and more of that today. So great. Thank you so much for showing up, for being here, present, and or listening to this later on. That's so beautiful. So take time just to settle down in this, settle down and release whatever you think is coming up for you, whatever you think is needs to be released, or whatever you have the possibility of releasing. Let it occur. This is the place for it. This is the moment for it. It's like you don't have to hold on to anything, any idea that you hold about yourself. This healing place that we meet is the moment and the place where in fact we can just let go of it for just a moment. You can pick it up later on anytime, but why would you? But anyway, you can do that, of course. So that's your so-called free will. So today we continue with the miracle work, and it's becoming an interesting journey for me to go this deeply into chapter 4. I think I never did that before, but all the aspects that are mentioned in it and that are reminders are very helpful. So it's like, okay, I actually wanted to spend like 5 meetings in the chapter 4, but this is already, I saw, at 9 or 10 or so. So it really doesn't matter, but we're going into it, and there's too much it's like beautiful instruction or helpfulness available in any of the sections that we're going through, that I don't want to miss out on it, to share it with you. And that's exactly the reason why I do this. Like, to share with you what I find, what comes to me, like, oh yes, that's so beautifully. It's like in the it's an incredible setup in the absolute masterpiece that A Course in Miracles is, coming from out of time. Coming from out of time, Jesus is instructing us to, like, follow my guidance. This is your chance, to do it right, in the sense of not what you think should happen, but under my guidance. That is so great about this. So very specific instruction to look at this way, to look at that this way, to look at that way. It's like the instruction and the setup is so systematic, is so amazingly slowly but certainly expanding, that before you know it, you are able to think with your right mind. And that's a joyous occasion. That is absolutely not comparable to anything. And so this very specific instruction then, that has been going on since we started doing the chapters, like this very specific instruction is for you to just do it once, but do it right. Like, this is your one opportunity to do it right, and do it right in receiving absolute the guidance that is actually going to be helpful to you, that is actually working without any kind of distraction, without any kind of possibility or degree in any of this. Like, no, there's no degrees in this. This is the guidance, literally, that you need to get out of this enclosure that you call your human mind, your human identity, your all of this. It's like to merge, literally to come into direction, and let that open up completely in your consciousness, to come to a place of a recognition of soul source communication as the only communication. And say it becomes so easy when that becomes your total dedication. It becomes so simple when you don't have to choose which one is real. It's like, no, coming from the certainty, confirmed by your direct communication with source on a continuing basis. Every time you need a reminder, it will be given. And all this that goes on and on. It's like brings you back into a presence, say, let you be in a presence that is not of this world whatsoever, but will be your complete, say, reunion with Source. And yeah, so that's the offering. In fact, that's the offering. So everything that we do in this, then in chapter 4 and chapter 3 or 5 is going to be great too. I can tell you that already. It's like it's just getting better. Like it's just expanding until you see my self-concept has completely dissolved. I don't hold on to any ideas about myself anymore. So that would be chapter 31. And at the same time seeing a complete fulfillment in the sense of peace that you are experiencing. All right, so we continue. I'm not saying that we should continue till chapter 31 or anything, that the fulfillment cannot be instantaneous. No, it can absolutely be, because one part of wholeness is just as whole as more parts of wholeness. Like there's no way you can tell how this will go for you. So that's why we use the guidance of A Course in Miracles in this moment. And so I prepared some visuals for it that I use as a reminder of the thing that came to me to share with you. So today is the direct communication. Is the topic, you could say, the direct communication. Now, we start with this, and this is particularly interesting because still the idea of ego illusion is coming up, and it will become less and less in the continuation of the chapters, but now it's like at its height. We still take a look at the ego illusion, even though, like it says here too, like even though it does not matter. Like it should be clear that while the content of any particular ego illusion does not matter, it is usually more helpful to correct it in a specific context so that you know what we're talking about. So the ego is thus against communication, like it tries to prevent communication because, say, one of the definitions of communication is that it's whole. When it's whole, it's real. So it doesn't have separate parts. Well, the ego mind, of course, is then always for separation and differences and comparisons and all this. The ego is thus against communication, except insofar as it utilizes to establish separateness. So it establishes separateness in its thinking. If it's about that, like if it can exclude, if it can say separate, then it uses communication instead of abolishing the separation, like breaking the separation of, in fact, evaporating the separation, seeing that it has no reality and there it goes. Now the ego is actually holding on to it. So the communication system of the ego is based on its thought system, as is everything else it dictates. So it has a thought system. Its communication is controlled by its need to protect itself. Like that's the main thing that it does, a need to protect itself. And it will disrupt communication when it experiences threat. An example, for instance, that you might recognize in your human behavior is the response of breaking communication with a specific person or persons. Like, okay, I cannot do this any longer. So you bringing this back. So the thing then with breaking communication, which we all have done, it's like you recognize this, breaking the communication because you think, well, I cannot stand it any longer. I need to protect myself. This is too harmful, or this is too this or too that. And at the same time, you differentiate, you separate yourself off of it. And this is an integral part of the ego thinking that it needs to separate itself off. Now you can tell me, it's like, well, yeah, but some situations were really harmful to me. So what should I have done? Like, why shouldn't I do that? Or when it's too dangerous, I'm not going to do that. I've no interest in continuing then the communication. And you could say like, well, actually then, and I speak from my own experience too, like in that situation that you thought you need to differentiate yourself from other so-called other persons, you missed the most important part, that there's literally no other person. So that confusion, in fact, is sufficient to come into a feeling that isn't nice. Like it is for no one, is for no one nice to separate or to distantiate or to say like, no, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. So you in fact hold on to your and defend your self-image, forgetting one thing, just that it has nothing to do with communication. And in that sense it hurts, like it hurts yourself, and you get a reflection of that it might hurt others too. Like that is what seems to be the occurrence. But in the drama of the ego scenario, it is legitimate because it's like, yeah, well, whatever it takes. Like I need to prevent myself from falling into like some kind of dangerous situation. So this is really interesting because it's so practical and so recognizable for all of us. You know, speaking for myself, of course, it's so recognizable to do it this way, to separate yourself off without, in fact, connecting with source and allowing communication that would set it straight, in a sense. Like there's no situation where communication cannot be invited. Like in all situations you can ask for communication. Communication is whole. That is what communication is. So it will not exclude. So this is continuously then, in whatever situation you find yourself, there is a possibility for you to come into communication. And seeing that literally dissolves the situation. Like it was your one alternative that you turned down in order to survive, yeah, to establish your self-image. So now you know, like there is an alternative available to every situation that you encounter. There's no exception to that. In other words, the love of God goes with you wherever you go. It's like there's no situation where you are apart from that. So even if you place your bed in hell, we know this from the Bible, it's like even if you place your bed in hell, it doesn't exclude you from direct communication with your source if you ask for it, if you are open to receive it, if you can let go of your ideas about what the situation needs. Now you see that only your own ideas about this, which is based on your self-image, is in the way. That's all. You know, that's just all that is in the way. So it's good to be reminded of this, like in every situation that I find myself in which I have the tendency to dissociate, to separate, to say like, well, no, I don't want that, that's not part of me. you have an opportunity for the alternative to come to ask for to come into direct communication with source instead of using your mind to and its ideas to figure out what the next step would be, or enjoying the pain of enjoying the pain of separation. So we all know this, and that's why it's so great that it's being mentioned. So you see that this part that doesn't know, in fact, that part of your mind that decides to separate has actually no idea about itself. It doesn't know who it is. Otherwise, it would not do that. You know, it could never do that, because it would separate a part of wholeness, which is impossible. Like, I'm speaking technically then, in a sense, like technically speaking, that is not possible. You cannot separate something that is whole. So if I have a tendency to separate myself off from others, I try to make that real to myself. And the only thing that happens then is that I step from one delusion in the other, and thinking like, hey, what went wrong? Why do I feel so lonely? Or why do I feel so bad or so depressed? Well, it has everything to do with that. So on the other hand, and that's why we come now, where we come to now, is okay, so let's take a look at this communication of the soul. Coming in contact with your soul, that is continuously, without disruption, in direct communication with source. So let's see what Jesus is telling us here. So the last sentence, as I repeat, is its communication, the ego communication, is controlled by its need to protect itself, and it will disrupt communication when it experiences threat. Example, the response of breaking communication will nevertheless be to a specific person or persons. Well, we have sufficient experience with that. Speaking for myself, yes. In contrast, so here we go. So in contrast, the soul reacts in the same way to everything it knows is true, and does not respond at all to anything else. I love that. So in contrast, the soul reacts in the same way to everything it knows is true, and does not respond to at all to anything else. See, this is different. So the soul doesn't react to perceived conflict. It doesn't react to it. It cannot see it. So that's good to know. So see, here was your opportunity too. It's like you can say respond to a situation in a totally different way if you in fact cancel out perception. Like, whatever I've seen, that cannot be it. There must be a different way to looking at this. Then you come, say, into the communication with your soul. It does not make any attempt to establish what is true. See, it does not make any attempt to establish what is true. This is great. It's like, truth is true no matter what. So it doesn't need to be established. It is already true. So we don't have to figure that out. No, it is just there. So that's an interesting one too. Like, the ego would be very busy explaining himself why he needs to separate and why that is necessary in order to save its own image. But the soul doesn't do that. It's quiet in communication, not reacting to anything it knows to be true, and not responding to anything else, not making any attempt to establish what is true. It just is. It knows that what is true is everything that God created. It is in complete and direct communication with every aspect of creation, because it is in complete and direct communication with its creator. This communication is the will of God. Yeah? So that's... Now, just remind yourself of one situation that you were in that you actually decided, no, 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 that's not mine. That's not, no, that's not part of me. No, 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 no. Like when you start to do that, you know, in any kind of situation that can happen. So what actually happened then is that you just ignored, in fact, the one solution that is available, the one solution that literally heals the whole situation. And see, the tendency, and it's lovely to look at it this way, in fact, is like the tendency then of the ego mind is to take all kinds of aspects and use it to prove that it's right. It's like, no, but you did this and you did that, and no, 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 no. And before you know it, you have a pile of memories. It's like your ammunition to use in your war against the, yeah, against what? Against yourself. Like you find all kinds of reasons to attack, and more and more and more, to confirm, or and in fact to say cover up your uncertainty about the situation. Deep deep uncertainty of if you're doing the right thing, because you know you don't. It's like that's so great. Like underneath all the uncertainty that you're experiencing, underneath all the anxiety that you go through, is the deep doubt about yourself. In what on earth am I doing? Like, what is going on? This does not feel right. So like you do your best to twist and turn that so that you can come out of it with not too much harm to your image. The soul then, on the other hand, which is so great to have a moment to actually look at that. Like the soul being in communication with every aspect of creation, direct communication, like not making any concerns about any kind of situation, but and also not establishing truth, no, just knowing it, in fact, residing in it, bashing in the light, not anything else. It just is. Why would it respond to anything? Why would it have to deal with anything in that sense? Why? There's no reason for it, because the communication is not broken. The communication is not disturbed. The communication is never disturbed in the soul experience of yourself. Like it is never, it cannot be disturbed by anything. So any temptation to think that your communication is disturbed or is not there, or you cannot be in touch with it, or you can't hear the voice for God, or you do no. You this whole scenario that you use against yourself to separate yourself off from source is all, well, you name it, give it a nice word. Insanity, ignorance, insanity. All kinds of things you can mention it. It's fine with me. So it has nothing to do with the reality of you and the direct communication that is taking place in you no matter what. So rather than open up and say, remember this instantaneous, beautiful, continuous communication as a whole part of this universe, a whole part of source, communicating with every part of creation. Hello? Oh, wow. That's so beautiful. So it's so nice to stand still with that. It's like, of course, you have an idea when you meditate that is what you want deep somewhere, but it's nice to have freshly in your awareness that that's the option without exception, no matter where you are. You'll see this later on too in what we share. That feels so good. Thank you so much. So this communication is the will of God. So how can I do the will of God? By allowing this communication of staying in continuous contact with soul, living that, not having to establish that, no, breathing it, living it, feeling it, experiencing it, letting all else go, not responding to any of that. God created every mind by communicating his mind to it, thus establishing it forever as a channel for the reception of his mind and will. Repeat once more, just that you know. So these are just sweet reminders. God created every mind by communicating his mind to it, like it's an aspect of his mind, thus establishing it forever as a channel for the reception, a channel for the reception, receiving it, reception of his mind and will. Since only beings of a like order can truly communicate. Yeah. Oops, sorry. His creations naturally communicate with him and communicate like him. This communication is perfectly abstract in that its quality is universal in application. So here we have our point. Like there's no exception to it, so it's universal in its application. Now that's a great reminder. Wait a minute. His creations naturally communicate with him and communicate like him. This communication is perfectly abstract, but understand this well. Abstract in the sense of in that its quality is universal in application. You can apply it to everything, everyone, any, and it is not subject to any judgment, any exception, or any alteration. Like it's not subject to any judgment, any exception, or any alteration, any change, you could say. Like it's constant as constant can be. Universal in its application. So this is like, if you let this come to you, if you contemplate what is actually being shared here, you have, you in fact are knocking on the door of heaven to receive the peace that is yours. His creations naturally communicate with him and communicate like him. This communication is perfectly abstract. It is abstract in the sense, its quality is universal in application and not subject to anything, not judgment, not exception, not alteration. So it's constant. Existence is specific in how, what, and with whom communication is worth undertaking. Now tell me that you don't apply that. Existence is specific in how, what, and with whom communication is worth undertaking. Well, I'm going to stop right here. Because there's like, oh yeah, here's a little, here's a little ego reminder. So communicating, with whom are you communicating? You probably, like at least you recognize the tendency to do so. Communicate with the ones that you think like, well, at least that will bring me something. Like that would be an ego way of thinking. Is like, well, if it doesn't give me anything, why would I do it? Why would I communicate with just anyone? No, there has to be a benefit for me in in even starting the communication. Otherwise, it makes no sense to me. Right? Recognizing that. Yeah, of course you recognize that. It's like that is the way the ego works. Like, no, why would I talk to you? What do you have for me? Why? This is a very normal way of thinking in the human ways of thinking. So in the ego mind, it's yeah, normal behavior, you could say. So canceling out at the same time, canceling out any opportunity that is in say is a whole part of what is actually ready for you to come to you. Like you literally give no chance to have the miracle work, to not knowing what you're doing, but completely trusting that the one that is coming to you is communicating with you, and you, by you opening up to the communication that is yours, you recognize your oneness with your brother. So you missed an opportunity to have a holy encounter, as it says in the Course. Like everyone you meet is a possibility for a holy encounter. There's no exceptions, no alterations, no judgment in this whole story. Like in the truth of who you are, there's nothing to judge. How could what is one distinguish between what is one and what is one? You know, that's impossible. So judgment and comparison and all this analysis, and it just does not make any sense in communicating wholeness. All right, so this it's quite something. I love this. So because it's so fundamental, but also so right in your face as a reminder. Like don't forget this, because like this is a really sweet reminder not to trust your ways in dealing with wherever you find yourself. Like you don't want to miss out on anything to see the will of God fulfilled. That will be the only thing that makes you happy. You know, it's like that is exactly the place where that happens. Existence is specific in how, what, and with whom communication is worth undertaking. Being, on the other hand, is completely without these distinctions. It is a state in which the mind is in communication with everything that is real, including its own soul. Being is completely without distinctions. It is a state in which the mind is in communication with everything that is real, including its own soul. Wow. With everything that is real, including its own soul. Wow, I love that. So being is literally being in communication. That's its natural state, being in communication. How could it make anything specific? It cannot. Okay, so continuing. To whatever extent you permit this state to be curtailed, you are limiting your sense of your own reality, which becomes total only by recognizing all reality in the glorious contact of its relationship to you. This is your reality. Do not desecrate it or recoil from it. It is your real home, your real temple, and your real self. So I'm sharing this like a school teacher, I know. So, but I love to share it like this because it's so beautiful. Like, to whatever extent you permit this state to be curtailed, you are limiting your sense of your own reality. So if you think that there are exceptions, that there are, say, reasons not to communicate because of the goal for it, or if it's going to bring you something, you are limiting your sense of your own reality, which becomes total only by recognizing all reality in the glorious contact of its real relationship to you. If you say, you could say, like, if you recognize yourself as being a whole part of reality, then this is easy. Then it's not difficult or anything. It's like, no, you don't want to limit that, because then you would make an exception. And what if you make an exception? You're literally, say, making something that isn't real. You're literally fooling yourself. You step right into delusion or mesmerism. This is like, you literally are doing that to yourself. So if you don't, this is your reality. So accept that. Invite it in. Let go of the rest. Well, this is our practice, you know. This is our practice of meditation, of say, offering a holy instant to your brother, of being still with your brother, and recognizing, like, if we are still enough, we probably recognize that there's no separation, that we're in communication together. This is our opportunity. So it's your real home, your real temple, and your real self. Do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? And we know this from, say, the letter to the Corinthians. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? Oh, this is all that refers to. So was this 2,000 years ago that it was written down? Well, we're practicing it. We'll get there. We'll get there. I love this. So the Bible, oh yeah, this is also a nice aspect. So we're getting into the next part in. It's like, okay, so yeah, I want to do that. I want to let my soul be my teachers, you could say. I want to live from my soul. Yeah, you feel that coming up, right? So the Bible repeatedly states that you should praise God. Here's a little thing. Like, this hardly means that you should tell him how wonderful he is. Like, God being a whole part of you and you being a whole part of God cannot distinguish, and created you perfectly. So it's like, yeah, you don't have to tell him how wonderful he is, since you're not separate from him. But unless you take your part in creation, his joy is not complete because yours is incomplete. Yeah, that makes sense too. God has kept your kingdom for you, but he cannot share his joy with you until you know it with your whole mind. Your whole mind. God is praised whenever any mind learns to be wholly helpful. This is impossible without being wholly harmless, because the two beliefs cannot coexist. So these are almost like the ground rules for spiritual vision. So the truly helpful are God's miracle workers, whom I direct, Jesus says, until we are all united in the joy of the kingdom. I will direct you to wherever you can be truly helpful, and to whoever can follow my guidance through you. The truly helpful are God's miracle workers, whom I direct until we are all united in the joy of the kingdom. I will direct you to wherever you can be truly helpful, and to whoever can follow my guidance through you. So this is the part where it becomes really interesting too, of course. It's like, well, this is what happens. So you discover this for yourself. You have an incredible, beautiful experience of yourself, of the holiness of you, of the beauty that God is giving you, of the deep love that you experience for God. And you know, that feels so good and so great, it's so revitalizing, brings you into like really feeling completely connected to God, which is absolutely wonderful as an experience. But in fact, on the side, at the same time, you could say, at the same time, now you're going to give this away in order to keep it for yourself, to remind it yourself. You're going to give this away as a miracle worker. You're going to give this away. You're going to extend this to the ones that are coming to you, to the ones that you meet, to the ones that in some way you're going to be guided to do that exactly in that way, in that moment, following the guidance that is given to do it that way. Not your concern if it works or how that should be done or that you have to make a plan for it or anything like this. It's like, no, this is all taken care of. But it's essential that you do it, that you are aware of the fact that this, what you received for yourself, you're going to give away, to follow the guidance to the ones like through you that Jesus is instructing through you, like that whole mind is instructing through you, and it looks this way, and it can look your way, and it can look your way in the sense of you have an individual expression of this. All your talents, all your activities, all your, say, all that you represent is going to be used for that. I see this too as my personal experience. Like every aspect of it is used. You cannot believe it, and more, of course, like and more. So that can come into expression in having a background with the flowers. That can come into expression having a class at 9 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, like a little WhatsApp that somebody sends you out of nowhere. Or it can be a little call that you have, somebody you meet in the street, someone you sit next to in the train, or who knows what, your life partner, your whatever. Like all this carries, you could say, carries the same purpose. It is all the same thing. But the inspiration is then give away what you have received for yourself. Give it away. Give it away. And that, say, reunites the sonship, that reunites your joy. Like there cannot be an exception. So this is the other part that I was trying to share. It's like I said, it has everything to do with spiritual vision in the sense of this, that you're not going to make any exception. You're going to be all inclusive. Like you're not going to make an exception in to whom yes and to whom no. No, you just follow the guidance and trust that. But what I mean to say is like you cannot say expand or extend this wholeness of you and at the same time making exceptions, or at the same time defending or thinking that this doesn't comply, that doesn't say that has nothing to do with this situation. It's like no, it is all inclusive, because as soon as you start to make an exception to this, you feel that you're on this little detour, that you're losing it in a certain sense. You're losing it. Something happened and you got yourself into into a delusion. So the only thing you have to do is then to let go of that and to return back to, oh wow, that's, luckily it's not true. It's not up to me to make any distinctions, to think that something needs to be changed so it will fit my image better or something like this. Like, all that does not need to occur. And so this is what we practice in our miracle work. So everything that happens from now on, while you have heard this, everything that happens from now on is part of that, without exception. Great. So every opportunity to stay in communication, to live from your soul instead of from your mind that always tries to distinguish between this and that, or tries to say maintain its own self-image. Like, no, that's gone. We don't have to do that anymore. We can let go of that habit, and it's so great. So that's why I love to share it with you. And so this was chapter 4H. I think we have one more section to do. But like I said, this is all so wonderfully given to us in such a great way, so systematic, and it touches exactly there where you want to hear something. It's like that communication, you can completely trust that, and unbelievable how this comes to you. It's like so beautiful how this is directed to you to bring you back to the recognition of your whole communication with every aspect of creation. So, yeah, choosing a miracle prayer. Okay, yeah, so much choice. It's wonderful. Okay, so this is the thing that we do, in fact. So this is lesson 260. 260. 260. 260 en français. Let me remember God created me. Father, I did not make myself, although in my insanity I thought I did. Yet as your thought, I have not left my source, remaining part of what created me. Your Son, my Father, calls on you today. Let me remember you created me. Let me remember my, with capital I, identity, and let my sinlessness arise again before Christ's vision, through which I would look upon my brothers and myself today. So Christ's vision has nothing to do with perception. Like, I want to see with Christ's vision, but that again is like my soul communication. Let my sinlessness arise again before Christ's vision, through which I would look upon my brothers and myself today. Now is our source remembered, and therein we find our true identity at last. Holy indeed we are, because our source can know no sin. And we who are his sons are like each other, and alike to him. And we who are his sons are like to each other. We are like each other, and alike to him. Let me remember, God created me. So that's our prayer for now. Let me remember that God created me. So that's great practice. Let's do that. Thank you so much for joining in this moment, in this miracle work moment, and see you soon. Thank you so much.